Hello, this is Cryptolyze. Hope you're doing well. This Wednesday, August 2023, it is with pleasure that I meet you today to talk about CSPR, CASPER's crypto. As usual, we will dissect in two parts. A fundamental part, we will go back to what CASPER is. We will at the same time go to see the news, and then we will project ourselves on the technical analysis for purchase prices, short, medium, and long selling prices term to see a little bit what the graphs have in store for us, and it starts right away. CASPER is a Tier 1 blockchain. The principle is to give developers tools to be able to build decentralized applications. This is the principle of any infrastructure blockchain of which CASPER is a part. The small peculiarity of CASPER is that it is a protocol that has already existed for quite a long time, and that the team behind it is those who built the CASPER CBC specification, which was basically the consensus that was created and who had been commissioned for the transition to proof of stake of Ethereum at the time of 2017 minus 2018. Given all the delays we had, they decided to launch their own blockchain themselves with this consensus and the way they developed the blockchain. The particularity of CASPER is that you should know that it is a blockchain that has always had this image of Ethereum killer. He can't get away from it, and you'll see it even in the news. It's still very present in communications. For me, that's one of the downsides. One of the positive points is that they have completely transformed their image. This is the old site with the old logo, and this is the new site with the new logo behind it. New logo in which we find the inscription directly to CASPER in a red block. So they are modifying their marketing to be able to hold a little more to the simplicity of using CASPER. They want to be a simple, scalable, decentralized blockchain to be able to be used by almost all industries. And that's exactly it, with the elements of the use case, in fact, that are offered with tokenization, the fact of being able to own the management of ownership rights, finance, and generally everything that is economics for creators with NFTs and the integration of NFTs. So that's really the very idea and principle of CASPER. CASPER also made a lot of noise about her, in particular for her tokenomics, which at the time was considered by many to be horrible. I simply defined that it was a choice, that it was not a mistake at the level of tokenomics, in which there was going to be a big inflation to arrive at a max supply quickly enough, and we see that we are almost on the total max supply. We only have subsidiary inflation left to simply maintain the course of CASPER and the costs of running the blockchain. So we are in something which is already completely diluted, with an infrastructure which is rather solid, programming languages which are rather coherent, in which we have a consensus which is also relatively strong, and a series of investors who are always present, mainly retail. The big institutionals are not very present on it, and this is perhaps also one of the difficulties that CASPER may have subsequently. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that we are starting to have communications that are made at the level of CASPER Labs, which is behind the CASPER development base, where they are in the process of doing a whole series of posts right now about the importance of artificial intelligence and the linking of artificial intelligence with blockchain. All right, it's really in between. They are going into this arc of artificial intelligence, although they are not necessarily specialized in it. So for me, already it tickled my eyes a little bit when I started reading this, especially when I see the type of post you can get with something like this. And that there is, in fact, on Twitter, there is almost only that. And that's starting to trigger me a little bit in the sense that normally we're supposed to be in an infrastructure blockchain, so making tools available to developers, attracting a certain type of developer. At that time, what tools are available to facilitate the integration of artificial intelligence at the CASPER level? Currently, I have not found. If you have articles, don't hesitate to comment them. It's a pleasure. I'll read them for the next video on CASPER. But in this case, for me, it's more a marketing aspect, saying, look, we're also going to do artificial intelligence. For me, I put aside and even limit. It bothers me a little more. The other thing that also bothers me is an article that was posted on July 30 or 31, I believe, of this year, in which it's an interview with the CEO, and which goes back to the milestones, that is to say, on the points of interest of the last months of the year. And we are talking here about a partnership with APU, so that a lot of people know it, on the fact of minting 1 million NFT on patents. So that is to say patents. But once again, there for the moment, it's still not done. We have no news on it. We don't even know if it was really validated, if it's just a notion of partnership. What did they consider a partnership? and then even basic millions of NFTs, okay? But then there's Solana, who mines millions and millions and millions of NFTs. The concept of cloud on Google, well, integration, okay, there is Avalanche, which does the same, in which it's just the integration of structures to be able to build nodes on the fly, well, not necessarily a big one, great interest. Then we're actually going to have a certain number of news items. I'm not going to play them all. But each time it's news, which is more a form of news and not necessarily a form of partnership, behind us, you don't actually see the building of the partnership. You don't see the interests of the partnership. You don't see the factual elements behind the partnership. And that's something that's starting to really tickle me in the sense that it was already a question I had before. And the more time passes and I have information on that side, the more questions I ask myself. And that is very important to consider. The other thing here is going to be differentiation from the competition. In this interview, it's the CEO's allegations in it. And that is very, very important to remember. I'm just going to translate this sentence for you, and you will perhaps understand less what bothers me. It's that CASPER is the first and only blockchain solution exactly, which will meet the needs of companies with interoperability, scalability. And I actually get annoyed when I see that. It's something where I say to myself, in fact, we have still positioned in this image of Ethereum killer, instead of going to focus on one of their strengths, it is that they have smart contracts, which are scalable, DE agreement. You have to understand that when you build smart contracts, so which are blocks of code instantiated in the blockchain and which make a decentralized company, okay? If there's no smart contract, there's no decentralized app. And that's something only they have. Instead of really focusing on that and capitalizing on it, unfortunately, they're going for this image of Ethereum that there is, when they shouldn't have that. And that, I think, is something which is really problematic in their communication and which precisely attracts their wrath in the sense that no one really wants to go into interoperability with them precisely because they have this image there while they still have a functionality that is relatively strong. Because right now, if I'm on Ethereum, I want to change my code, I have to redeploy a contract. And so that means that all the people who are on the old contract, I have to ask them to stop, to withdraw their funds, to deposit them on the new contract. It is relatively heavy. And we can see it, for example, on AAAV, hacks that have been carried out on the old versions, the old hens, which still have flaws because unfortunately people, either they forgot or they did not know or they haven't been made. And as a result, they haven't transferred from hen to hen and nothing can be done. While the fact of having improvable contracts is really an added value for the ecosystem, this is the controversy. Do we want ossification, so something that will stay as it is, or do we want something that evolves? Well, that's another discussion. But in any case, for companies, indeed, it has a value that is really very important. And unfortunately, they do not go there. They have more communication than anything else, and that's really disturbing to me, at least in terms of marketing. You tell me what you think in the comments. Do you mind the marketing and access they have of Ethereum killer? Is it really an Ethereum killer for you? Do you see hundreds and thousands of decentralized applications built on top of CASPER? What do you really expect from CASPER? From that point of view, I'm very interested in hearing your opinion. So we are going to attack the technical part which has been talked about a lot for a very long time, with this dynamic of a launch of an ATH, which is just impressive, and then the tumble of the price as we can see it here, but which is mainly explained by the dilution of the token in which we had inflation coming in, the exit of the token, therefore the issue linked to the various ICOs that came out. So inevitably we had a price that was sinking with a cap mark going up, but normal compared to the token mix that was built. What's important to note is that since June 2022, we haven't made a lower, okay, it's one of the few blockchains to have done that. Okay, then June 2022. So Celsius after Terra Luna, we haven't had a lower. Despite here the break that we saw with FTX, we see that we are back above FTX. We are back on a new ATH in April 2023. One of the few, again, blockchains to have done this. So technically, we see that we are in a dynamic that is rather bullish, okay? With break-off structures that have been made, lots that are getting higher and higher, okay? So for me, we are really in this dynamic of structuring. The other thing that worries me maybe a little bit is here this effective retest in which we are going to retest the lower part of support, which becomes resistance. We are rejected relatively badly, so we could have a sign potentially of bearish continuity. So we could have a long-term bearish structure and here be in a short-term bullish structure. There I don't have an answer yet. The answer will come if we break this lot here. If we break the 0.025, There we will have a signal to make a lower and potentially make a spring because we has a big accumulation that exists since July 2021. So we have SC, ST, STB. So we do have an accumulation with the taking of liquidity here. But we could have here a spring for the large accumulation. And there we could suddenly have an STB on a bearish coin and seek here in this accumulation there a new liquidity intake to have a reaction to. In any case, here for me, we are going to have a pretty sure retest on 0.31 in which we could have a very nice reloading area if we are ever interested in this project, taking into consideration the positives and the points negatives. It's all a question of will and understanding. Do we want to expose ourselves to this type of project? Namely that we are on a small market cap. We are on a market cap which is at less than 500 million. So we are at something that potentially could quite easily make X10, X15, X20 in a next bull run to get the 5-10 billion market cap, which would be completely normal for a structural project in which we have decentralized applications. The question is, are we going to have users? Are we going to have applications that will be built on CASPERs? This is the big question you need to answer if you want to expose yourself. For me, at the level of the spot zone, we are currently in an interesting spot zone in which we could precisely look, in terms of prerogatives, to have a CASPERs who will already go looking here, this AR there, in which we are going to get the 0.24, which would be the equivalent of an X10, where for sure here we will have a sell-off. All right, we will have a big sell-off that will be carried out because there are a lot of people who have been locked out here. Why? Because we had June 2021 there, we had November 2021. So the last part of the two bull runs, so we have a lot of people who are stuck in that part there. So there will be either a relief, that is an intake of liquidity. Here, leases, so that means that we will have a bullish acceleration, an effective retracement before being able to structure the rise. If ever we have a membership, if ever we have many applications that are carried out, and an implementation of interoperability, in particular with Ethereum, very strong, much stronger than it currently exists. So what we will have to go after to really score a big three wave, for me it is that we could go and get the 0.5 or even the $1 and $1 would precisely carry CASPER's market cap in the 11 billion, which is not totally stupid in fact. In a representation that we recall in the previous bull run, we had Solana, which was one of the top layer one, which was at 70 billion. So not to mention the fact that CASPER becomes a top layer one, the fact of arriving in the 11 billion seems to me completely coherent for an end of bull run if there is no incident behind, if there has a lot of use, of course. By CASPER, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to leave me a little comment and a little like. And if you like this type of video, I'm sure you'll enjoy the video I made yesterday on IMX Immutable X, where I explained to you why this project is revolutionizing NFTs and why you are not aware. I'll put the video here and we'll meet tomorrow morning for the daily.